Oh my God, what's that? Well, what that is what the inside of an HEI distributor looks like. And what you see here, there's the mechanical advance weights for your mechanical timing. You see there's a little shaft here, and here's the vacuum advance unit that also affects timing. There is your ignition module, and these two little wires back here go to the pickup coil, which is underneath the counterweights here, or not the counterweights, the advance weights. And what we're doing here is, you remember that we rebuilt the carburetor a few weeks back, and we're chasing down a misfire that's shown up in the past few weeks. And part of that had to do with, well, what I didn't realize was how old the spark plugs and wires are on this car. But while I was at it, I figured, well, let's check out some other stuff. So one of the things I did was I checked out first the pickup coil, which generally is bulletproof, but they do tend to go out and they kind of cause a misfire if they're screwing up. But usually when they go out, you just have a no start condition. These two wires, if you disconnect these two wires, best way to do a check of this is to basically get a volt ohm meter, put it on a 2000 or a 2K ohm scale on ohms, and take one lead and put it on one of these leads here, and another lead to put to the ground of the distributor, somewhere in the middle of the distributor. It should be infinite resistance, and it should be the same across both of them. Now, they say that the best way to test the distributor and the pickup coil is to pull it out of the engine. Well, if you don't have the no start condition, probably the next best thing is to just, again, pull those leads, stay on a 2K ohm scale, and put your leads across both of these, disconnected, of course, from the ignition coil. All these tests are disconnected from the ignition coil. And you should get something between 700 and 1500 RPM. I'm sorry, I got RPM on the brain. 700 and 1500 ohms, which means the coil's fine, at least in position it's in. So, I mean, that's the quick test. So I'm pretty sure the pickup coil's okay, but we'll move on from here. As you can see, I've been busy. I already pulled the spark plugs from this. This is a small block Chevy engine, V8. And what I've been doing is just kind of looking at the ignition components. Now, I told you the spark plugs and wires were already worn. They had about 40,000 miles on them. And here's actually the plugs, and I've bagged them and tagged them as it were. Just kind of looking at them. Okay. So here are the spark plugs out of the engine, and I've laid them out exactly as they go in the engine. 2, 4, 6, 8 on the left bank, standing in front of the car, and 1, 3, 5, and 7. And basically, this is, you read the plugs. Now, if you look at my plugs, these have about 45,000 miles. See a little bit carboned up here, and these are AC Delco 10 Platinums. And while they have been cleaned, yeah, they've got some more. And if you see black and they look a little sooty and rich, that's mostly more the camera than anything else. But the bottom line is they need to be replaced. And I had some. Remember, we had some fuel issues with this car more than once. Not just this carburetor, but the one prior. So it's no surprise that they're a bit sooted up. But you could see at some point we cleaned it up because the electrodes are pretty clean. You can see that's from the cleaning, and after a few hundred miles, they didn't get any worse. So, but yeah, these are ready to be changed. And the other thing you look for is when you've got a plug that isn't necessarily firing quite as well, sometimes that arc from the ignition system, or from the wires, will go somewhere other than the tip. Well, and you can kind of see evidence of that here. This little black mark isn't dirt. What that is actually the spark was kind of bleeding over from the plug boot into this ceramic body here. And the way you can really see that was if you do the dark night spray water bottle test on your spark plug wires to look for leaks, what you'll actually see when this kind of thing is happening is you'll actually see it glowing. If you look down, you'll actually see a glow between the plug boot and the plug, right in this area, right here. And it's weird. It literally looks like it's glow in the dark. That tells you've got bad wires, bad plugs, whatever, which is the reason why I've got new plugs. Now, here's the thing. This is technically a quote-unquote major tune-up because we're doing plugs, wires, and we're at least looking at the cap and rotor.
Okay, if you're going to do any kind of ignition job, you're going to need to know what tools you're going to have to use. So we'll go over them real quick here. Now, if I miss something, I'll add it as we go on in the video. But these are the absolute essential basics here to basically do cap, rotor, wires, and plugs. First thing you're going to need to start, the spark plug boot puller. It's a heck of a lot easier than trying to yank on the wire and a lot less likely to damage the wire. I've actually had wires come out and leave the boot behind, and then they're pretty much useless. Pen to mark so that you can keep track of what spark plug wire goes to what plug and where it goes on the cap. Nice, handy thing to do. That keeps you, that's in the case what we're doing here, we've pulled all the wires and plugs, but we marked their positions before we did that, so we know where they go back. Now, some people do the one wire at a time replacement thing, but since we've done this kind of major tune-up, we went ahead and used this to mark. Next thing you'll need, once you get the plug wire off, you're going to need a socket, ratchet socket, 5/8 inch socket, spark plug socket preferably. Usually has a little bit of rubber, whatever in there to kind of hold the plug. This is a 1/2 inch drive with an adapter. I just use this because A, I have the room to do it, and B, it gives me more leverage. You can use the 3/8 as well. You just can't get quite as much leverage. The plugs shouldn't be super tight, but they're going to be snug enough to where you'll have to kind of break them free. The other tools we have here, flat blade and a Phillips blade screwdriver. This is primarily useful when you're trying to do things like put the distributor cap on, take it on and off, because the screws on there work better with the flat blade than this. This is good for like putting the distributor rotor back in, screwing that down, and whatever else you may need to do. A file when you're cleaning, and later in this video you'll see. This is good for if you're gonna try to clean up your cap and rotor. If it's just needs a little cleaning, it doesn't need replacement. This is good for knocking off some of the crud. One thing you don't see in here, a little bit of sandpaper, the same thing would be cleaning. Just a light tap on this, and I show you how to use this properly. Over here, spark plug gapper. And the way this works is basically you get the plug on the end of it, you find the right size, see it's marked off here. In this case, we're going to do a 0.045 gap on our new plugs, just because our energy is putting out a little more energy than the standard ignition would. So we'll open up that gap a little bit. But that's used to gap your plugs, and I'll show you how to gap them. And this funny thing is actually just a piece of rubber hose that fits nicely over the spark plug. This is for getting into strange areas with your plug where you want to just get the thing started, but you can't get your hands in there and you can't feel what's going on. This you just basically put on the end of the plug, kind of like so. Here I've got a plug and a vise here, but I just kind of stick this on here like that. See, now it's nice and tight. And then what I'll do is I'll loosen this up. There we go. And then once it's in there, you can kind of finagle your way, find the hole, and just kind of start it with this, and then continue the tightening with, of course, your ratchet. But sometimes you just can't quite get in there and get a good feel. Other thing I'll say about putting any screw in, especially when it's blind and you can't see, is I always like to try to, once I find the hole, I like to try to basically, instead of, if I don't think I've caught a thread, I like to actually turn it backwards to try to see it, then turn it forwards. That way, if it goes easily, I know I'm not cross-threading. If I'm having resistance, then I know to back off and try again. You never want to cross-thread a spark plug hole. It's a pain in the butt to deal with, especially with the engine in the car. So that's how that works. And of course, finally, some cleaners. So we'll clean up contact cleaners. And this stuff you buy, this isn't carb cleaner. This is electronic cleaner. It's not the same thing as brake cleaner either. This stuff will not harm or melt plastics, which is important because a lot of the parts in the ignition system are plastic or rubber. It's harmless to that. It just cleans the contacts. I use this stuff to do an initial hit on the ignition components that I can clean up, which would be the cap, the rotor, that kind of thing. Maybe even a plug if I'm looking to reuse plugs that aren't too old and worn out. But just spray it on there. And after you use this to clean this up, it'll take out the carbon and crap. That's when you start using the files and maybe a little sandpaper. Finally, we'll leave it up to the DVM. This is good for testing things like coils, pickup coils, secondary coils, spark plugs, all that. Mostly you're going to be looking at the resistance setting. Usually the 2K ohm is sufficient. I kind of go over what to look for a little later in this video, but basically this is going to be, you're going to be using this for resistance meetings. Resistance is everything in an ignition system. You want a certain amount of resistance, but you don't want too much. Too much basically kills off your spark, and then you don't have any fire in your cylinder, and that's not a good thing. So that's an overview of the tools and a little bit of getting in how we'll use them. We'll continue on from here. Okay, what we're looking at, one of the stages in the process of our major tune-up is determining whether we should replace or just service/cleanup our cap and rotor. Now these are the two most critical parts of getting your ignition to fire. This is where the spark ultimately comes from and gets to your spark plugs. So here's the deal. You don't always have to replace a cap and rotor if it can be cleaned, especially if you're using a little higher quality unit, like for example this is an Excel unit. So it's got made of a little better materials. It's got brass terminals instead of the standard steel terminals you see, or aluminum. And so it's designed to last a little longer and be used a little harder use. But before we make the decision to reuse or pitch, we should do some testing first, and part of the test we're going to do is a visual inspection. Now what we're looking for is any damage in the cap, any cracks, anything that might indicate that this thing does not have the integrity it should to be able to do its job. Now it's kind of hard to see when it's dirty, so one of the first things I do with both cap and rotor ignition is I take some electronic cleaner, and you see I use this stuff. And it's harmless to plastics, so which means it's not going to eat the plastic of this, or actually the alkylid of this cap. It's not going to do anything that damages the cap or the rotor. All it cleans is these electrical contacts, these metal surfaces. And that's the first thing I do. And you'll see when you spray this stuff on, you'll just see a wash of the dirt and the carbon and all the crap just go right away. So that's where I start. And I like to do that inside and out. For instance, in this cap I didn't notice any building or tracking inside it when I cleaned it up. But I did notice a little on the edge, a little goop on the edge. So I cleaned that off just in case. Now, chances are the dirt that was in here was because of overuse of some penetrating oil used on those counterweights I showed you, those advanced weights, and I think it kind of flew around and might have had a little bit to do with my misfire situation. So be very careful in the judicious, be a liberal and measured use of lubricants in certain areas. But in any case, that's all cleaned up. And the first thing we do is, once we get it to a state where it's cleaned, before we do anything else, what we need to do is we should test resistance between the points in here. This is where the rotor, right here, the tip of the rotor will actually go rotate around, and you see, well, it's kind of hard to see, but as it rotates, it comes very close to these points, and that's where the spark happens. Bang, and it jumps the gap there, and it goes down to your plug and goes down to your wire into the plug, and boom, and fire happens, and yay rah, internal combustion is all done. Well, the thing we need to do is make sure that we have good contact between where the spark may start and where it ultimately ends in each component. And that basically is an ohms test or a resistance test. Easy peasy lemon squeezy kind of test. All we really have to do is get yourself a multimeter. Any multimeter do, most of them ohm scale. Put it on ohms. I like to use the 2K ohm scale. That's pretty much standard for most things automotive when you're doing resistance and you're not loading the circuit or anything. But what I like to do is I just basically take these leads and I put one lead, and I'll try to show you here. I'll put one lead on the outside post, and I'll take another lead and I will put it at the same corresponding point inside. Now, let's actually look at this point. We'll put this, I'm going to go ahead and test that very point I just showed you. I don't have four hands, so I can't show you everything, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the one lead
on the inside contact point and the other on the outside. And what you'll see is 0 ohms. And it jumps around a little bit because my meter's a little flaky. But the fact is, when it gets to 0 ohms, that's good. Now, if you had anything, if you had something like 10K ohms or something like that, okay, two things. Either there's a lot of dirt and crud and buildup that you need to clean off, or you have a bad terminal. Now, if you determine that you have a little more ohms resistance than you should, and you shouldn't be seeing any more than about 100 ohms, really, then the next step is to basically go and clean inside here, clean these terminals. Now, how do you clean them? Well, you start off by a liberal amount of this and cleaning this, the inside of here with the electronic cleaner. Clean that off, get that dried out, and then you can take a little sandpaper if you want. I usually like to put it on the edge of a screwdriver, and just on the flats here, just kind of sand that lightly, and you'll feel if there's a buildup or that. This should be smooth. There should be no buildup. There should be no grittiness, no rockiness, especially on brass terminals. You just kind of drag that sandpaper. Now, if the sandpaper isn't quite enough, a little bit of buildup, you go ahead and take a flat file. In fact, there's such a thing as ignition files. Old school. Ask an old school shade tree mechanic what an ignition file is and what they're for. This is exactly what they're for, because in the olden days they didn't throw things out and replace them. They fixed them. But in any case, you just kind of take that and just kind of lightly drag it. And the thing is, you not only go by feel, you can go by sound. When you can drag it across and you're not hearing that gritty sound, so you got a little bit gritty sound there. You see how that kind of goes away? Okay, that's how you know it's clean. And then follow that up with a little bit of sandpaper. Of course, blow it out, because you don't want those shavings in there when the thing's trying to fire. You don't want to create another arc path or a ground path. So, just real simple stuff. Same thing as far as resistance testing. When you're working with the rotor, same thing you did with the cap, do with the rotor, just to check to the center electrode here. Okay, and what you're looking for is the same 0 ohms of resistance. There should be no resistance between these two things. Remember, resistance in the circuit is like putting a resistor in the circuit, which is ultimately made to drop voltage. And if you're dropping voltage, that means that voltage is getting wasted and not getting to your spark plug, so you're not having an efficient burn in your combustion chamber. So, okay, while we're also at it, we'll just do a quick and dirty test of our ignition coil. Now, this is an HEI coil, and this is a super coil, so it's just like any other HEI coil, but it has this special little case on it to make it look neat. But real quick, most quick and easy way to check a coil, an HEI coil that is, just out of the car. And again, most of the times the coils aren't the problem. It's usually something else. You're more likely to have ignition module go bad than a coil, at least this coil. And this is considered there's a primary and secondary winding. What we're going to do is we're going to put leads across here, and what we're looking for is no resistance. If we had any resistance at all, that would mean we had a break on wire or weakness in this coil somewhere in the wiring, and it pretty much means we're not going to get as good a spark. This thing right here, this coil, this is what produces the spark. This is what steps up 12 volts to 40 to 60,000 volts in here. So if this thing is flaky, you're not having a good day. Oh yeah, and our little button here, our little contact button. This is what actually takes the spark from the coil in this little spot right here in the center. You probably can't see that. That little round area in the center. It takes this and basically transfers it up to the cap on the rotor, or the rotor and then to the cap. Anyway, that's some basic ignition stuff. Now, there's been a lot of videos about, and there's more in-depth stuff that I'm doing here, but this is just kind of an overview. Remember, the things to take away from this are, as far as is it replace or clean, is look at the condition of the cap and the rotor, see if they're usable, because like a cap and rotor set like this is about 30 bucks. If you could save 30 bucks, you should do it. Coils, you know, it depends on what you got. I mean, if you got a standard GM coil, you know, it's not going to be as expensive, but still, I mean, you could easily, between plugs, wires, coils, caps, and rotors, a major tune-up could cost you $150 in parts alone. So anything you can do to save a buck here or there is a good thing, especially if you're just chasing down a minor problem. Okay, one other item I wanted to note here. You may be concerned, you're looking at this going, this looks like I could actually put this on backwards if I did it wrong. Technically not possible, and here's why. The way this is designed, this sits on top of basically the advanced mechanical advance weights, and they kind of live inside of here on a little pedestal, and there's some little arms that these two screws screw into. Well, there's only one way this cap is going to fit, and if you're forcing it, you're doing it wrong. And here's how you know which side's right, is not only the fit, but you see how this is all solid on this side here? On the other side, we have a notch. That's not broken, that's not a problem. That notch is made to engage with a little tab that sticks out on the arm these screws into. And if you've got it on right, when you put this down, you'll actually feel the metal right there protruding, which is completely right and completely okay. That's how you know. That, and it'll just kind of fit, you'll know it's there. If you got it on backwards, this thing is going to be cattywampers, it's not going to want to go in, you're going to be fighting it, and this should not be a fight. Other thing I'll mention is these screws are fine thread, so it's going to seem like you're screwing forever and ever and ever, or you might even think that you've stripped out the hole at some point. Don't worry about it. These just take a long time to get set, so that's all. And there you see we've got it installed. And they're snugged up. Don't over tighten them, you don't want to crack the cap, and you don't want to actually risk stripping out those holes. I don't know if they have a helicoil that small. So anyway, that's what it looks like installed. Okay, now we're going to look at the cap. Now that we're done with the rotor, let's look at the cap. Some things I'll say about this. There are two schools of thought on removing caps and wires and doing things like that. One is the old school way, well, the any school way really, of basically replacing a wire as you remove a wire. So you take the old wire and put a new one on, go on all around. And that works fine, but sometimes you have to take all the wires off at once, like in a case of replacing a cap, or well, you could do the one wire at a time with the cap, but it makes it a lot harder. Or you could just take them off. I just like to mark on the distributor on the outside with permanent marker where each wire goes and which plug wire goes. Since this cap is only going to fit one way, you don't have to worry about it being 180 out or anything like that, and mostly because you have this hookup here that kind of guides you. And generally on a small block Chevy, you're gonna have plug 5 to the right here on basically the bat terminal, and you're gonna have plug 7 to the left, which is basically the tack terminal on this side. So, and then it just goes from there. You know, and then on you have 2, 1, and 8. You see 1 and 8 are always, these two are always interesting. These are always the ones that seem to be the biggest pain in the butt to get hooked up, just because they have a strange way to go. Number 6 isn't much fun either. That's not 6, that's 8. Yeah, anyway, I just like to mark the caps just to see, you know, where I'm at, so that I can pull this thing off and I can be confident. There's 6, where I can get these things back installed properly. Now, here's the other thing: the carbon button, or the cam button. Dielectric grease, a little on here. You can see it's already got slopped up pretty good. This side protruding down goes into the hole, and once you flip up the cap and look, you can see there it is. That is actually what is going to be providing the spark. So, to the inside of the cap and all the other good goodies, and you see right there, it's kind of shining. Also, this is a good area to look. A lot of caps, if there's damage, you'll see this all chewed up, and beat up, eaten up. Okay, and that isn't the case here. That's how another way we know this is a good cap. What we've taught you here is basically how to put this right back together, right? Remember, spring up. The spring is going to contact the bottom of the coil, and the button down and just basically looking at stuff, how this is, and basically marking the cap. You see, and you see over here, I actually have my wires laid out. And what I'm going to do is, not that it's really kind of a waste of time since I have new wires, but I have them kind of laid out according to where they came out of the car, or how they came out of the car, in order, so that I can kind of compare these with the new wires for length and that kind of thing. I could test these for resistance, but these wires are about 15 years old, and since I was already having a misfire, I'm pretty much convinced that they need to go. So there's that. Oh, one more thing about the cap, especially these HEI coil and cap models. Blowing a little crap out of there. You see these J hooks? Okay, these are the biggest pain in the ass in the world to get this cap on. And if you get it on, if you don't get all four of them on right, you'll be cantilewompered on one side. Then you basically have opened up your chamber here to the environments, and that just screws up things royally. The easiest way is to put this cap on before you put in the coil, because once the coil's in there, you got virtually no way to really get at these stupid J hooks easily. So that's the one design flaw I really don't like about these large cap HEIs, is these J hooks, because they make it a pain in the butt. But anyway, pretty much, in fact, that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put this thing on, I'm going to put this actually back on the distributor. So we'll be back. Okay, so you see we got our cap back on there now. And the cap is kind of like the rotor. You have to kind of finagle a little bit. It's going to wobble around until it finds. It's got a little notch of its own that kind of fits on top of the distributor when it's right. Once it hits that notch, it's going to sit down and be flush. And it's going to be nice and tight and not move. And you basically turn those screws, those little J hooks down there. I don't know if you could see it on that one. You could kind of see it. But, you see. Yeah, I can't really see it. I can't get the light there. But you just turn them until they latch underneath the body of the distributor base, and just kind of give it a little wiggle. See if it moves. If it doesn't move, then you know you got it nice and steady. And you see we got a little button down in there. So now we're getting ready to put the coil back on. And once we do that, we can hook the wires back up, and then we can start working on getting the spark plugs and spark plug wires back in this thing. So we'll be back. Okay, we're going to try to put the coil in here. First thing is, you'll see they have these leads. They only go in one way. You can't really screw them up. One of the things I did mention too is check this ground strap. It'll either be a wire or a strap like this. Make sure it's in good shape. Make sure it's going to have a contact with a screw that will go to the body of the distributor so it's grounded. If this thing isn't grounded right, it ain't going to work. So, with that said, in a big cap coil, these wires just kind of fit in here, and you'll find it. Okay, there we go. We got them in. They just had the tabs a little bent, but once you get them in, they'll pop right in. No biggie. Don't have to fiddle with them so much. Watch the wires. Make sure they're not being pinched or cut when you're putting this down. But there we go. It should just drop right down. Then we put our 4 screws in. But we won't do that yet because we still have wires to put on, but we want us to have this loose enough to where we can get a wire. So.
Okay, you're saying, oh, okay, I see a spark plug hanging out of a vise. What is this? Well, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how to use this nifty little spark plug tool. And how this works is you take this tool, and it's on a spark plug, and you just kind of get it up underneath, like here, and just pull. You see? Comes right off. It's a heck of a lot easier than trying to... Let's put this back on. By the way, here's another thing you should learn. What it sounds like when a plug wire is properly attached. Hear that? You felt it, and you can feel a little snap. Well, see, you could try to pull and plug and all that. Well, this one's greased up, so it's coming off. But it'll be like, sometimes they just get stuck. They won't come off. But with this thing, it lets you get the thing off without damaging the plug or the wire. Just boom, and it's done. So, there's that. Okay. Real simple. New plug. Old plug. I'm going to show you here about the gapping tool. Now, I'm going to gap these to 0.045. They show up pretty much at 0.035 or 0.040. But again, we have a little higher power ignition. So I'm going to show you to use gapping tool. And 0.045 is this mark right here to the right of this big end here. So what you basically do to gap is to check. All you have to do is really get the plug as so, and basically slide this little end just into the edge of the plug, into the open end, and you feel just a little drag. It shouldn't have to force it, and it shouldn't fly right through. If you got the right gap, it'll be just a little drag when you stick this in there. Then you know you've got the right gap. Okay, since I only got two hands, here's our new plug, and you can see you've got the gap right here. The camera will freaking focus. There it is. And what we do is we're looking for a 0.045 here. And all we do is we just kind of take the plug, and you don't need a vise to do this. It's just going to have two hands. Just kind of get in. You see it's just kind of dragging. Okay? And that's what it should be. That's how it should feel. Okay? See, like if we try to go with a smaller gap, let's see, we got a 0.030 here. See, that won't even go, see, this won't even fit, won't even get past there. But if we do 0.045, which is what we want our gap at, see, it just goes in there. Just fits. And that's what we're looking for the gapping. And some of these are like, have wire on the end. I like these a little more solid. Now, if we have to adjust a gap, you see that on one end of these, you see these little hooks. If you have to adjust gap on a plug, like these old plugs were actually 0.060 because they were supposed to be performance plugs, which, let's see, 060 is pretty big. It's right about there. You see this one's still gapped nicely, but if we want to change that gap or widen or loosen that gap, what we do here, let me get a good angle on it, is you see the end of the plug here. And then you see the body here. You take this little hook. If I can do it. Again, I'm only working with one hand trying to do this. But you're basically just putting leverage on this arm in the back to move it. Not at the front, the back. That's why you get hooked to the back. And just a tiny bit of force is just enough to move that. And you keep doing that till you get it in the right spec. Now, don't do it too much. You know, show 2 or 3 times max, because you don't want to break this off. Once this is broken off, the plug's useless. But that's basically how you gap a plug. So you take you figure out what gap you want. You hook your little tool in here. Why is everything I try to make it look easy gets hard? I don't understand. Anyway. Hook your little tool in here as such, and you can just bend it forward and back. As long as you get the right size. You should get a size that fits correctly. There we go. One that will actually let you get some leverage on, so you can bend it forward and back. And now, no, I'm not actually bending it, it's just loose on the plug. Since it's an old plug, I don't care. But I'm going to bend this a little bit. See how that moved? And now we should have a big gap because we moved it. Anyway, that's an easier job to do with 2 hands than a vise in one hand and a camera in the other. So, all right, it's an unboxing of sorts. We bought a set of small block Chevy HEI plug wires from Jags, of course. There's the part number, 4210, 90-degree HEI, small block Chevy, over the valve cover with 90-degree boots. That's what we need. And we're going to see what we got in the little box. It's the box. And there's the old plug wires laid out in order. What we're going to do is we're going to try to match up the length of these new wires as closely as we can with the old wires, because we know the old wires are pretty close to being what they need to be to go where they need to go. So let's do that. Okay, we've laid out our wires approximately the size of our old ones, so we've matched those up. This is the benefit of pulling all the wires, because you can kind of match them up. And with the kit, they're nice enough to give you some separators and some wire markers, which is really kind of handy. And we'll make sure we mark these wires where we want to go, and we'll put them on the car. And that's what we wanted to accomplish. All the routing's done, we got them back up, everything's. We made sure we routed them and crossed wires at certain points so there wouldn't be any risk of crossfire or arcing across. But there it is, folks. Remember when routing wires, try to keep them away from hot exhaust components. Make sure that they cross at some point if they're running parallel for any length. Make sure they cross each other to cancel out any chance of spark jumping from one wire and induce spark. And when you're done, check your timing. You probably won't need to, but if you're just doing plugs and wires, but we're pretty much done. Thanks for watching.